Good morning. This is Spirit Journey. It is now 7:32 in the morning. It's Tuesday, June 11, 2019. I want to talk about David Icke and maybe some other people out there, speakers, people who are known in the media. Yeah, I was introduced to David Icke quite a while ago. I was at this job back then. I used to do security guard work. I worked downtown. I think this was the downtown location. Oh no, this was location around 34th Street on the west side. And this individual, a tall fellow, he was a teen. I think he was 18 or 19 years of age. He was very big for his age. He was from Haiti. And I was one of the older people there. I was in my 40s. This was a while back. This is around, it was after 9/11, incident. So it was, it could have been around between 2002 and 2003, because I'm not sure at this time whether I had moved into my own place. I moved into my own place in 2003, but I was still working at this place. So anyway, this individual had a book, and it was one of David Icke's book. It was the one with it was yellow, and it was about I think it was the Alice in Wonderland. It could have been that one. And he said, "Hey, look at this." That's all I remember the conversation, really. And I know once I did move into my new apartment, got more settled, I did buy some of his books. I don't remember which bookstore I went to. Yeah, I went to bookstores back then. You had some really nice bookstores in New York City. And I had bought about 3 of his books. Yeah, okay. I bought his books because I remember I remember putting the books on my bed to read. And my room at that time was in 2004. Yeah. So I at least bought the books in 2004, and then I started reading it. Had put them on my bed. It was a whole bunch of them. And I know that there were at least 3 of his books. The one that had the lizard on the front cover, something with the word loop in it, time loop, and then the Alice in Wonderland thing, and the 9/11. So it was like 3 of his books. And I think I also bought what was that now? The Beyond the Pale Horse, something like that. The author, he had passed away. Well, the author of that book about the Pale Horse, he was killed by police fire. Yeah, I was introduced to that book from another black person. It was a black female. And unfortunately, she had passed away about a year after I met her. It was very hard for me at that time. It was awful. She had passed away in a car accident. She was a very hard-working black woman, very nice person, very, very nice. She was very nice. And where I lived at the time, she had showed me the book. Hey, look, I got this book and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, we were in Harlem, I think. She had the book. She showed me her book. She took the book out of a locker, and she was showing me the cover. I remember the cover. And I think we went to Harlem one time, and there were these books. Yeah, the street vendors, the black vendors with their tables on 125th Street. And she pointed, see that book, blah, 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 blah. And so when I got to moved into my own place, I had more free, more relaxed time, and I wanted to buy some books, and that was also one of them that I bought. So actually, I didn't really know about the term conspiracy theories. I didn't know about that genre. But actually, I was being introduced to it without being told the term conspiracy theories. So I was reading something with David Icke. They talked about Princess Diana a little bit, yeah. But that was my introduction. And then I started to get overloaded with information. Because see, back then, 2004, I was still a Christian, okay? I was trying to find a church to attend. There was a church next door, actually. I went there for no more than a year, I think, a couple of months. And then I wanted to find other churches. I was introduced to this other denomination, Presbyterian. I was curious about Presbyterian churches. Back then, the Bushes were in power, and they had Condoleezza Rice. And now you never hear of her. You don't hear anything about her, what she's doing. But back then, the Bushes got into power, and she was in the Bush administration. I almost said another name, but the Bush administration. And I was curious about her, and I like, in the media, they didn't have a lot of intellectual black women. And I was interested in who she was. And I learned that she was, her father was a Presbyterian minister. And so I went to investigate what this denomination church was like. So I visited a whole slew of them. The first one was this really big Presbyterian church on Fifth Avenue. Very high end. The Presbyterian churches tend to have more money, more catering to people who are, they come from some type of money / education. I didn't feel comfortable with that one. I said, well, let me check out some others. There's just one church, and the churches were getting from bad to worse. It was an eye-opener to me, because here I thought, oh, well, I like how Condoleezza Rice is. I was just impressed with her. So, how she carried herself. Again, I wasn't into politics back then. I was looking for other black individuals. And again, I had returned back to, I know I'm jumping a little bit all over the place, but it's all going to come in. See, I had come back, I used to live in Hawaii for almost 3 years, and I returned back to New York, the state where I'm from. I'm from New York City, born and raised. And I came back to New York in 2001, roughly 6 weeks just before the World Trade Center got bombed. It was just before that. And things were very problematic, trying to find work, and then I needed a place to live. Yeah, it wasn't a good time for me at all. So I was looking for, well, and also I came back to New York because there was a racial component living in Hawaii. And when I was living there, towards my latter stay there, I said, you know, I miss black people. I miss not seeing them. I want to go back home. I want to get in touch with my black heritage, black people. So I came back in 2001, and then the 9/11 thing happened when I was trying to find steady work and all that. It was a madhouse. And it took a couple of years to really get that stability, economic stability. So from 2001 and finally getting my own space by 2003. But by 2004, things were getting a little bit more smoother, but it then again was getting problematic. And I also in 2003 went back to school for 8 straight years. Yes. So I was just trying to get my life in order. And so my being interested in who Condoleezza Rice was in 2003 and 4, I was just curious. I was now a little bit more relaxed in myself and thinking, and again, I was still a Christian, and I thought, hey, maybe being part of this denomination, maybe this would help develop me as a woman, as a black woman, as a person. And then in my discoveries, it really wasn't for me, that it really didn't serve me well. I wasn't interested in what I saw. I saw corruption, things that really looked kind of seedy. And again, I had visited maybe 4 Presbyterian churches, and each one got lower and lower spiritually. But either way, this video is not about the church per se, but I'm just giving background information of who I was and how it eventually ties into my getting to know about David Icke and everything. So yes, this person that I worked with had his books, and then when I eventually got my own place and had more free time and more money, I started going to the library, the bookstore, and purchase my books. And so I was now getting introduced to the genre of conspiracy theories, as some people call it. But I call it the awakening stage. So I wasn't awake back then. And I was just curious. I was allowed to be curious at this time in 2003, 2004. And then at one point, I was getting overloaded with these different I shouldn't say philosophy, but people's experiences and conspiracies. And so I actually threw away those books. I can't believe I did that. I threw away 3 of David Icke's books, that book on Beyond the Pale Horse, something like that, and then this other thing, this Christian, it's a, I forget the book. It's this blue cover, and there's something of miracles. It's like a workbook. Yeah, I had that, because it talks a little bit about spirituality / Jesus, but it's really not about Jesus. Oh, it's called A Course in Miracles. Yes. And so I was getting challenged. And so I said, I can't take this. I'm a Christian, and you know, um, if something is causing you mental confusion, then maybe it's not of God. And so I threw them out. Yes, I did. All of them. But also, how fate would have it, I had a computer. 2005, I had, no, it was late 2004. I was in a nutrition class, and we had a class project, and I had a so-called partner for this project. And it required me, I should say. I had the computer. I had what they call dial up. You use your phone line, and it gets in that way. You connect to the internet via your phone line. But for the project, I needed to also call the other person to coordinate what was being done on the project, because we had to work together closely. So I got what they call cable, and I had to buy a service, an online service. And so now I'm able to talk on the phone and go on the internet at the same time. And this grew, because now I had to do research on the internet, download software, and so it exposed me more to the internet. And I didn't know really where to look on the internet, really. But I remember when I was in the room that I sleep in now, I initially had it set up as a reading room. This was going to be my study room, and my bedroom actually was the living room. I wanted something, because the living room was real spacious, and the bed seemed big to me, and I wanted it. I didn't know the bed could fit in the small room, and I didn't want to feel claustrophobic. So I had the bed in the living room, and then the little room that I'm in now was to be my study room, reading room. And so I remember I had the computer in the room, and I went on the internet. I was curious about about Britain, because again, when I was still living in Hawaii, they had a bookstore, and surprisingly, in Hawaii, they had a black African American section. Yes, they did. Yeah, it was several bookshelves, and I went there, and they had one black person that worked in there, and he used to walk over to me. We small talk a little bit, and I think he pointed out certain books he thought I might like. And I bought this book it was written by a black author, black female, and it was I think it's the Black Woman's History or something, and it's almost like a cartoon book. And it had little stories about black people that mainstream wouldn't know about. And one of the people that they talked about was, I think, Princess Charlotte, I think her name was Princess Charlotte, or Queen Charlotte. And she was what looks in the drawing, what we would call today a light-skinned black woman. Her features look like my face. If I were pale looking like that, it looked like my face, basically. And she was an individual that lived in this, what was that? Oh, what was that, the 1600, 1700? I forget, but I'll have to look that up. And she was supposed to be of the, she was royalty, but I think of the Portuguese royal house of Europe. And the book, how it made like a joke, like, oh, folks, don't get started, but did you know that so and so was a black woman? Something like that. It was supposed to be comical. The book, uh, you have to see it. But either way, so I had gotten that book. I almost forgot that I had gotten that book. Yeah, it's just coming to my memory now. But yeah, I had bought that book. And so I said, hey, let me do a search on this person. Let me find out about, do they really have black people in the royal family? So it's more curiosity. And again, I wanted to learn about who I was as a black woman. Okay? So my initial exposure coming back to New York was about learning about my black history, black people, and things hidden from the mass black community, America as a whole. So slowly I really am being indoctrinated to accept that there are things that are not mainstream. And then doing the project in school with this other person introduced me to the internet a little bit more. It was opening up doors, but I was still a Christian. I said, well, I was still locked. I was curious about other things, but then that religious program was coming in strong. And I used it as a foundation to sit upon. I think religion was my foundation. And so I think I keyed in. So I didn't know about Google, but I remember I keyed in something, like keywords. And I remember this religious program called TBN. And so I started watching this on the internet. Yes, by 2005, because now I had the cable internet, so I could talk and go on the computer, and I was able to stay up late on the weekends because I was a student. Everything was about my studies, so the only free time I had was I would allow, because I was into the Sabbath. It was, I think, Friday night. Yes, Friday night was my TBN night, and they had black people on TBN. They were the singers. And I was fascinated to see black people in the media, because it wasn't that many in the media back then. Not that many. And you only find them on Christian shows, things like that, singers. So I would spend the night, Friday night watching the program, and I think Saturday I would just sit in bed on the couch and read, things like that. And that basically was my day. And I wasn't sure was I in church yet, because church was on and off, because I was church hopping at one time. So I would stay home and just read my Bible. So on those moments where I had the free time from school, from my studies, to go on the internet. That's when I would go on. And so my initial search was, by, what's that, Princess Charlotte or something like that. She looks like a black woman. Some of the drawings, she looks like a black woman, a light-skinned black woman. And then I started researching about the British royalties, their ancestry, because I said that they were a German family. So I was following the names and seeing how far back the different names go. Yeah, it was a whole lineage thing. And I was saying, well, if this lady Charlotte is part of their family, at what point did she come from Africa? That's what I was trying to research, because her whole lineage were all German names. everything German. I said, wow, where did she come from? Where, and I personally couldn't find her African roots, even though the book on Black women history, the cartoon-like book, it didn't say anything about any Portuguese people. So either way, this was the start of my search. And then, now that I have the cable internet and watching the Christian TV show, I think one day I started to browse around, and I found something on, he goes by the name Freeman Freeman Fly. Like you're a free person, and he's like the fly on the wall. So, according to his name, Freeman Fly. And I think it was him. Yeah, by 2005 I found it, because someone had died. This lady, Anna Nicole Smith, and she had just passed away. And I might have gone on the internet and typed in her name, something. Somehow I got his name. And he had a show, and he talked about these, what do you call it? Logos. He talked about logos. That was one video. And he talked about the mind control, and that his belief that she, Anna Nicole Smith, and another performer were mind-controlled individuals. It was really wild. And then something about the Bohemian Grove, or some type of owl thing in Texas. And so he was, I think, another start on the journey. See, it's always never one person, but it's a series of things. And then I think his show introduced me to a person by the name of Tex Mars, who was into different things. And then it was, what's his name? I'm trying to remember his name. It'll come to me. But yeah, I'm sorry. But he's considered like the king of conspiracy theories. He's been around for, what's his name? Jordan Maxwell. That's right. Jordan Maxwell. I think, yes, I saw him. And then there was other people. There's one other guy from Ireland. He's of an Irish, Indian background. Tasaris, something like that. Yeah. So all these people now were around the same time, 2004, 2005. And I was getting challenged with all these new people. And then the books that I was reading with David Icke and Beyond the Pale Horse, it was interfering with my so-called religion around 2005 or 6 now. And then I threw away his books. I said, this is getting me confused. I think I was continuing going to church. Yeah, I think I was going to church, or church hopping, and continue my studies it was my full life school at that time, and I just take like a day off to just do anything. And then I was still doing the religion. I found another religious broadcast show. He came in on Wednesdays. I no longer watch him. I'm not going to even give his name. But I was fascinated initially with him. And he was into that. I believed him. I believed everything about him. Yeah, and it was maybe one other religious show that I was watching. It was on Bible prophecy. Yeah, that's right, because I had a radio back then. Yes, I did have a radio. So early on, the first decade of the millennial, I played a radio at nighttime. I wasn't on the internet. It was radio. And that's how, yes, okay, it's coming to my memory now. Yes, I played Christian radio, and there was a guy on the radio, and he was on Bible prophecy. I think it's called the Bible Prophecy Show. And I think his show might have also discussed this other person. But either way, I think I went online and said, hey, because I think he said, oh, you can find us online or something. And so I think I keyed in the name. Yeah, because I didn't know how to really navigate the internet. So I think it was the radio, and it gave a program. And it was two programs, and both of them on current events and Bible prophecy. Yes, at this time, I was heavily, heavily into Bible prophecy because I thought this was the next phase of my life. Because now, it's about waiting for Jesus to come, waiting for Jesus to come. And the books on the conspiracies was interfering with that focus. It interfered with it, and it was confusing me because here I'm supposed to wait for Jesus and just pray and give nice prayers and wait for Jesus. But I'm finding these programs now because I have a radio, and now back then in uh, the the millennial and the first decade in the millennial, people were getting into the internet. It's becoming more mainstream. And so the radio would give different websites. And so I typed it in, and then one thing leads to another, and another, and then YouTube. Because sometimes when you press on uh, a link or whatever, it was a video, and that video was a part of YouTube. And so this whole YouTube genre and everything, it grew. I didn't understand what it was, and how do you get on YouTube and to watch it directly? Because I always had to follow the same steps because I didn't know how to navigate. But I remember, okay, when the day before I did that, I went on that site, and that site led me to that site, and so on, and boom, boom, boom. And that's how I got onto YouTube channel. So it's about progression. What I'm talking about now is about progression and how I progressed in knowledge about how to navigate the internet, how I got onto certain channels or certain websites was through this process. And so now it's interfering with my belief system about, because the only thing about Christianity now is just wait for Jesus to come and go to heaven. But that wasn't happening. It was interfering. And so I threw away the books. And then, what year was it now? Yeah, so I did graduate in 2011. It took many, many years. And then I still had to study for this licensing exam. But it gave me some free time. With my last test from the college, that weekend I went on an internet binge. And yes, I went on very controversial. I'm going to just say, I was watching I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. Louis Farrakhan. I was curious. I had more free time now because I just finished the exam November 4th. It was on a Friday. And then I think that Friday night, especially Saturday and Sunday, I think I stayed at home. Yeah, I wasn't in church yet. Yeah, I wasn't in church at that time, 2011. But I stayed at home and I binge watched the internet. And I was curious about other black people. And Louis Farrakhan is one of the major black figures in the United States. And I was also looking up about hip hop music, the history of hip hop. And boy, this started an anxiety attack on me. Yes, it wasn't so much the Louis Farrakhan. I didn't get the panic attack with him, but it was the what do you call the hip hop music and the music industry. I had gotten an anxiety, not knowing what it was, an anxiety attack, and it has led into a panic. And I thought I was having a heart attack, so I went to the hospital. Yes, and this was the beginning of beginnings for me. My getting panic attacks. Here, everything's supposed to be excellent for me because I just completed my studies in college. It took 8 years for me to finish. I was 8 years behind a textbook, had no real free time, just maybe one day out of the week, and just maybe listen to the radio, or then when I got my computer, go on the internet. But it wasn't like a full day binge like how it is now. But yes, this was a beginning. And it shook me to the core, these anxiety attacks. And I understand why this would happen. But I'm wondering now in hindsight whether I was being monitored about who I was watching. But it was actually the videos on the music industry that had the initial, that anxiety, not Louis Farrakhan. But I was watching both of them extensively. But now it was the second portion, which was the hip-hop music, the history of it, and black performers in general. But again, I was interested in the black community and everything. And so since now I graduated and I have more free time, and I want to get it, tap into the community. And there was something else I did. Okay, so that was too late. That was November 4, 2011. And then the anxiety attacks. And then February, so now I was being treated for anxiety. And then in 2012, February 2012, the Trayvon Martin thing happened. Trayvon Martin was a 17-year-old black child who got killed by George Zimmerman. He's a mixed-race fellow, I think an Ashkenazi father and a Peruvian mother. And he was living in Florida, this George Zimmerman. And he had racially profiled this teenage boy who was minding his own business and called the authorities, the cops. And again, he never knew this person, never talked to him before. And he called the cops that this person, this teenage boy, was suspicious, I don't trust him, and all this crime in the neighborhood. And so he disobeyed police orders to stay in his car, and that the police would come and for him to just stay in the car, not interfere. But he does it anyway. He disobeys and he takes his gun, loaded gun, and he approaches him and grabs him. There's a scuffle, and then George Zimmerman shoots and kills him. And it hit the news, and it shook me up. This was, again, another catalyst in my life that would lead me to where I am today and with David Icke. So this is 2012, February, and I'm no longer in school, but I am studying for this licensing exam. No, I was looking for work. And I went on an interview, I think in February. And it was a long process. It took about 3 months. Yes, 3 months for them to contact me to do volunteer work. Yeah, because I was getting the anxiety and panic attacks, and I didn't want to stay in the house, in my apartment. I didn't want to feel. I felt started to feel a little claustrophobic, and I needed to get out. And I thought, hey, I need to look for work, and I can't seem to find work. But hey, maybe this might be a good approach, because I was out of the work team for quite a while. And so I said, hey, let me do some volunteer work for a black hospital. So that's what I did, and it took 3 months process. And so I started working for them in May of that year. Late May I started. Might have been the third week of May 2012. And again, the social climate was very extreme regarding this young teenager being murdered. Yes, I call it murder, but they would just say he was killed, but I call it murder. So the climate was really intense. And then, what year was that now? I think it was 2005 or 2006. It all blended into each other. It was that flood that happened in Louisiana. Yeah, New Orleans is a very bad flooding. So again, another trauma against a people, the people are predominantly black. So again, this was an extra awareness now. So you have a teenage boy that was murdered by an outsider, and then you have this black community in Louisiana who many of them died in the flood and were just left to die there at a stadium. And so I was listening to the radio program to get more news about what was going on with Trayvon Martin and everything. And then I think they gave terms, they gave names, and then I would go on the internet and type in those names. So, what was the click now? Yeah, so I'm trying to really tie this all in. Everything kind of blurs into everything else. So I think at this time, let's see, I go back to church. Yeah. I found a church relatively near where I live. So now I'm getting the anxiety attacks. I'm doing volunteer work. But I said, I need more spirituality. I haven't been to church for a while. I said, let me go back to the church. But I stayed there for 2 years. Yes, from 2012. Because I thought Jesus was going to come soon. I just finished college. I'm doing volunteer. So I just, I want Jesus to find me when I'm in church. I think I said that. And that was my reason. Not that I'm in a physical church, but, I'm waiting for him to come and rescue me. Because I have these anxiety attacks, and I'm seeing all these things in the media about other black people being affected very negatively. I was feeling vulnerable. And then the lie. It was also, I think, in 2012. I used to watch this pastor. He had a program on the internet. And he talked about current events, and he talked about alternative news, about the occult. Yes, heavily into the occult. And actually, it was his program that motivated me to get my camera, because I thought he used a regular camera, that had, digital camera. And so I said, I want to get a program like his. And I want to talk in front of people and get it, yeah. So I bought the camera. Or I was about to buy the camera. But also 2012, I caught this minister in a big fat lie. Now I supported his ministry heavily. Yes, because I saw about him first before I started, how'd it go? Yeah, before I started really fellowshipping again. Yeah, it was the radio, it was the internet program, and I was supporting it, and then I caught him in a lie. He lied about someone being a part of a particular thing to try to cause a race riot. And I listened to him, and I knew he wasn't telling the truth. And I'm from the area where he claims this person was doing these things. So I know about who this person is. So I went on the internet to search for any comment of his, and there was none. He mentioned 2 black ministers. So anytime there's a problem, people like to verbally attack these 2 ministers. Now, I don't care for these 2 black ministers either, but if they didn't do anything, don't blame them for something they didn't say or do. And so I contacted this minister by email, and I told him, hey, you lied about so-and-so. I went on the internet, and I did a search, and they said, they did not say what you said they said. You owe those guys an apology. You have to give them a public apology. And the person said, well, if it was me, they wouldn't give me an apology. Something like that, he said. Yeah. And when he said that, I said, I'm not going to support this white minister. Yeah, he was a white minister. And no, this is not an anti-white minister bashing either, or white people bashing. No. He was just so happened to be a white man who is a minister, who I financially supported for a couple of years, and then I decided to stop supporting him when I caught him in a lie, lying on 2 black ministers. So that was the beginning of, hey, I supported this Christian church, and I thought he was all about God. I believed him. This spirituality. He was the true church, but he also was into the occult information, conspiracy theories. I think he used the term conspiracy theory. I think I might have learned that terminology from him, actually. But I watched him for months. I thought his work was fantastic. I loved his work. But that was a rude awakening. Him. Almost forgot about him. Yes. And so I stopped. I also stopped watching him. Yeah, I was hooked on his program and this other white minister. Most of the ministers back then that I found on the internet, they were all Caucasian. And that was another awareness. I said, how come I can't find any black ministers? So again, this was around 2012 with this guy that lied on these black ministers. And I found a program on the radio, political, that talked about it. And I said, let me go to another church. I want to go to church because I still was in religion and had more free time since I graduated. And so I find a church, and there was another black person who died, a famous singer. And that shook me also to my core. It was Whitney Houston. She also died in February. See that how things are grouped together, folks? I know I'm long-winded, but everything is tied in, and the timing. So you had two deaths, Trayvon Martin, a young black teenager, and I was concerned about the safety of my black nephews who were around the same age. And then Whitney Houston dying, and I felt vulnerable as a black person. Very vulnerable and scared. I never had this type of fear before, never. I mean, I was a shy person, but not this type of fear in my body. And so I'm back in this new church because, again, the pastor that I was supporting and using him as my minister, you know, getting religion and spirituality, I stopped cold turkey on him. I stopped watching and supporting his channel. And then I started another physical church near where, walking distance from where I live. And I was trying to stay busy, very busy. And I got on this crochet club in the church after a year attending, but I wasn't being fulfilled. And now it's 2012, late 2012, and I mean, I like my pastor, but I was not into this black awareness now. I was doing volunteer work at a black hospital. I was concerned about Trayvon Martin, who got killed by this outsider who just stalked him and killed him. And then the thing with the Louisiana and those blacks there dying. So I said, I don't feel comfortable in this church anymore. He wasn't a black minister. And I'm seeking. I said, it's stagnant. I felt stagnant. And so this, I think, was another major milestone for me. See, what I'm learning now is that I had to release one thing in order to embrace another. You can't be married to two things. It's one or the other. And religion for me, I have my Bible, and I know that God is with me. And so I don't need the physical church, but I had enough of this formal religion. And I was searching. And so I think I keyed in about, I might even keyed in the term black minister or something. And I found some black ministers. This one guy by the name of Charles, the other black minister who, he died maybe 1 or 2 years ago of cancer or something like that, or AIDS. I forget his name. The muscle guy, him. Some other, the Hebrew Israelite movement. 2013, I was getting into the Hebrew Israelite genre on the internet. And that's where that this guy named Charles, I don't remember his full name, but he's like a real man's man, and he's just so happened to be in this Hebrew Israelite type of thing. And he had a church, and he liked his weapons. And I like seeing men that act like men. I like men that act like men. I'm not about violence, but I like men that act and dress like men. And so I found him, and then that led me to another YouTuber, major YouTuber in my eyes, for me, major meaning influence over me. And she was a former Hebrew Israelite, former Jehovah Witness. And the first video that I saw of her was about the Bible. She was wearing like a blue hoodie. And she said something like, it just took my interest about the Bible. She said, if you look up, if all the scriptures were compiled together, it would be from my elbow to my fingertips. They're not all here. And it just really, her video just pulled me in. It was just something cozy and alluring about this information. I guess how the video looked. And I didn't know who she was. And again, I didn't really understand YouTube, but she was a YouTuber. And then I started learning how to watch her videos. Because again, I didn't really know how to navigate within YouTube and within one's channel. But I slowly learned, so I was watching the black guy, the Hebrew Israelite, then this former Jehovah Witness. Her name is Vera 747. It was her. She was, I give her credit for this. She was a major catalyst at that time to bring me to where I am today. Even though now she's on a different path, but it's all the same path. It's a journey. This is all a journey. And I started watching her extensively. But she said something that was key to me. This was, again, I think late 2013, early 2014. And yeah, I think late 2013, when she said, if you want to, something to the effect that if you want to open up your third eye, ask questions. And that was it. Yep, it's all pulling in. That if you want to open your third eye, ask questions. So I took it to heart, and I thought, I'm going to really be asking questions. Because in my subconscious, I knew I was asking something, but I didn't know how to verbalize it. I knew there was a problem. I knew there was something out there, and I wanted to tap into it. So with her saying that, it solidified in my head, ask questions verbally, concretely. And so I went to the museum. Have to let that, the sirens were just going off. Yeah, so I said, I'm going to go to the Museum of Natural History here in New York City, and I want to see the human exhibit, early humankind or mankind. And I took pictures. And I also started watching this TV show. I found this program on human genetics, the evolution of people, about where people come from. And this also was my new search when I started doing videos also. Yeah, because I didn't always make videos. I watched them, but I wasn't making videos. Yeah. And so I think I was slowly learning how, that my computer had, yeah, that's right, 2014 it was, when the trial for Trayvon Martin concluded. The killer was found not guilty. And I was grieved, and so I needed to speak. So here was early 2014. I had gone to the museum and saw the exhibit, and then came home and found this video on where people come from, and so all kind of tied in, and I started documenting. I got a notebook to write down my thoughts, and that's when I began the video. My first video, I think, was in 2014 about Trayvon Martin. Yeah, and I did about a 40-minute video about him, how I felt. I was very distressed, and that was the beginning of no return about my feeling vulnerable as a black person, as a woman, as a person who now gets anxiety and panic attacks. There was something stirring in me. There's something going on. So the catalyst was set in me. And I said, I'm not going to return back to that old life, old religion, seeing the human exhibit. And they said that the skeletons were 100,000 years old, which was in conflict to the Bible. And I started asking questions now, since there's a Vera 747 said, you want to open your pineal gland? And yes, I wanted to open up this pineal gland. And so I started asking these quite direct questions. And I stopped going to church. And then by April of 2014, I did an official meditation. And I saw things. I saw the geometric shapes. Yes, like a long chain of rectangles, like a stream. The colors were red and green with a black dot in the center. And then I saw a human face in this meditation session. And that was the beginning of, I guess you would call it the paranormal. Seeing, or metaphysics, I should say, metaphysics. And so I learned then that life was more than it was telling me, that I knew of, I should say. So that's 2014, and so I continued with this fellow YouTuber, Vera 747, and I saw she was on a journey. And so she helped me through this period, my watching her. And she was also the first YouTuber that ever wrote me back. I was learning how that you could make comments. You could comment below. I didn't know about that. And I remember I learned about this function, and I wrote a little something, and she wrote me back. So she made me feel connected. And it really motivated me to stay with YouTube and on this journey, because she definitely was on a journey. I didn't know where it was going to lead to, but when now 2015 is approaching. It's now late 2014, and she's coming to the peak of her theme of discussion, and then she lets it out in late November, the last week of November 2014. Yep. And it shook me. It shook me. She had a book. She's an author now. I got the book the week of my birthday. It could have been on the 3rd. My birthday's on the 5th. Her book was about God and religion. And that book got me in another panic attack. I had to put it down. And I've been told her, I said, I'm getting an anxiety attack reading your book. I can't read it all. And I also got to meet her too in April. Yes, I got the book in this December 2014, and then 2015 in April. If I made an incorrection earlier about my official meditation, it's April of 2015, not 2014. If I said that, no, I meant to. I think no. My correction. I have to make a correction again. It was 2014. Yes, it was 2014 because 2015 I did something else. But all still blends in. Yes, it was 2014 with the meditation. And I was now trying to process her book, trying to read it, and also at this time I was getting distracted. There was another incident that happened within the black community in 2014, yes. Remember, it was about V. Stiviano. And V. Stiviano, a woman of mixed ancestry, black and Mexican mix, and she was allegedly the mistress, girlfriend, confidant of this white Jewish man who owned a basketball team, and most of his members of this team are black, and he said a racial slur and hostilities against this one particular a famous former basketball player, and it hit the news, and this owner of this team got booted out. And the comments of this man upset me, and again drove me more and more to. It shook me up, and when I learned that the woman, I'm sorry, after he lost his position, these black women went on a date with him, on a vacation with him. And I had this channel back then called Black Com Warning. Again, my awareness, since 2012, I had this channel that was about black interest, black news, and all that. And when this incident with this former basketball owner said what he said, and then, supposed to be a big uproar in the black community, and then in the end, these black women went out with him on a date on vacation. He's an 80-year-old man, and these are with young women, black women. I said, this is baloney. This is baloney. I said, I don't need this. Here I'm fighting for for us, the black community, and you're going to stab me in the back and go out with this creep solely because he got money? I said, you deserve him. So I stopped putting up videos on that channel, and then I created Spirit Journey channel. And I said, I need to focus on my spiritual path and not these black issues anymore. I mean, not like that. If you're going to sleep with some guy that does this to black people, you deserve to be where you are. That was my logic back then. That was my anger. And so it pushed me into spirituality, spiritual realm. Spirituality doesn't mean goodness. Spirituality, but again, I want to be of goodness. But spirituality that I'm talking about is really the metaphysical world. Getting out of what is the physical and get into what's going on beneath the physical world. What's really going on? What's really at play? So Spirit Journey was born. That channel was born. And so now I'm introduced to, in late 2014, this new awakening, because this author presented a new paradigm about the history of the Bible and who Jesus really is, and it extremely affected my paradigm system. So by now, early 2015, that's 21.5, I was in a mental mess. I was in a state of confusion. But this was really the beginning. And so by April 2015, to try to help cope because I couldn't really read the book, her book, and understand, because it would get me anxiety attacks. I felt I needed to race to the bookstore, and bingo, I know it took a while for me to get to this point in this audio. But see, I do this audio for me also as a diary, and I think the listeners of this audio file should also do the same for yourself. Is to help you gather your thoughts, to understand what's happening, so then now you can take more deliberate steps in organizing your life. And that's also why I'm doing this. So 2015, I raced to the bookstore. It was the bookstore on the east side I went to. And I didn't know what book to get. I knew I needed something because I'm in a mental state of confusion. I was really out of it. And I go to the bookstore person. I said, I'm looking, do you have I said the word metaphysics. You have a metaphysics section? They said, well, we don't have metaphysics, but we have such and such. I forget what he called it. So yeah. And so he brought me over to the section. He says, oh, do you have a particular author in mind? And I really didn't know what to say. And I was maybe a little embarrassed to say what I wanted to say. But I just said, oh, how about David Icke? Because I remembered him in the past, maybe 10 years prior. So he points to the section. I said, okay, I'll we'll just browse around. But there was a gentleman right next to, standing nearby, another black fellow. Yeah, he could have been in his 60s, mid to late 60s. And he approaches me. He's wearing a very, very kind of earthy dress. Yeah. And he said to me, he approached me and he said, I couldn't help but overhear, but when you said the word David Icke, I knew I could approach you. And then he mentions about, he says, I forget the details, but it was very brief. Excuse me. And he said, I have an implant. And he showed me behind his ear. He says, yeah, I have an implant. And he said he was a school teacher, I think he said. And then he gave me his business card, or I should say his calling card. And while I was at the bookstore, then he leaves. And then I just browse around, and I grabbed everything. David Icke, this and that. But I bought a whole slew of books. It could have been 10 books, and they were heavy. Or even more. It could have been more than 10 books. They were big. And I walked it back home, bought them, and I walked home. It seemed far, but I did. I didn't know what I needed. I just know I needed to look at something. And that was the beginning of reintroducing David Icke to my genre. And I knew I had to do something. And yes, so I was doing the excuse me, the ayahuasca. Yeah, 2015 I also did ayahuasca. Yep, that was in May. So April I bought the books. May I did the ayahuasca. And it also turned out that David Icke did ayahuasca also. So now I started watching videos on David Icke. And then a year later, 2016, I continued watching him extensively. And then I went to his lecture for the first time. Yes, he gives his money's worth. So, and then, yes, also 2016, he had a book. Really big one. But everything you need to know, something like that, everything that you needed to know but you didn't ask or something like that. And that came out April 1st. So April, and then his lecture. So now I'm back on David Icke. And since then, I bought more of his books, and I started buying a lot of books on the metaphysics, paranormal, just everything. So really 2015 was my getting the information, because I knew I needed to do something, and it kind of calmed me down a little bit. But so, now what does this have to do with David Icke? Because I wanted this, I know I'm on a while with this audio, but it's all good. It's all good. It's to really explain me, and it's also probably explaining you, and that's why you're listening to this audio file. Now about David Icke. What's happening now with David Icke? Well, there's more interviews now with David Icke. Yeah, a lot more interviews, current interviews with David Icke. And David Icke has a movie out. I downloaded the movie over the weekend. Yes, I did. Yeah, I thought it was going to be in the movie theater, but no, they had the intro done in the movie theater. But it's actually something that you could download on iTunes. And that's where I got mine. But I started thinking with David Icke, it's hard to really explain, but when I bought the movie about his life over the weekend, this past weekend, I started thinking, is something up? I feel something is up now. I feel like he's winding down. Okay, he's been at it now for close to 30 years. And it's really starting to take momentum. What he's talking about, everything is coming to I think, a real fruition. That he was the flower in bud, and now it's coming to its peak. I perceive this. This is what I perceive right now, that something is about to happen. And I feel that something is to happen with him. And I hope it's all good. I wish him safety. I wish him a lot of safety. I don't know. But that's why I'm doing this video. And I know I was long-winded, but he's coming to his own now. He's, in essence, being accepted now by mainstream. That you could mention the name David Icke and not have a laughter, but now be a serious contender about reality and truth. And this movie really validates him as a valid and a professional investigator of the world system. He's not a buffoon. He is someone that is speaking truth. And I'm wondering, well, okay, why did the system allow him to get this far? And that's also my curiosity about him. That he is relaying a lot of information. And again, he was talking about initially, when I first heard about him, what was the focus was about the reptiles. And I think that's what disqualified him from mainstream, that terminology. But now Why didn't they get him then, this system? Or even now? And I say it like that because I was also introduced to what they call the super soldiers about 2 years ago. Okay? And one of the super soldiers, Max Spears, or people believe that he was murdered. He died a very, very mysterious death. And they said, well, they didn't want him speaking his truth. But what's the difference from Max Spears and David Icke? Whether you're a soldier or whether, they're all connected. And so I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but he did pass away. I remember David Icke saying that because, he had someone looking over him. I believe with David Icke, when he mentioned about the incident that happened to him when he was alone in his hotel room or when he went to the bookstore, this presence, I believe this presence is a person and that he was being targeted. I don't think it's some God force. No, I believe it's a person. I believe it's a technology. Because remember, David Icke talked about he went on this trip. I think it could have been Peru. Yes, it was Peru. And he just had this urge to walk on this particular section. And then his legs was like lead and he couldn't move. He was standing, but he couldn't move his legs. He was stuck there, and that this electrical force went through him. I believe that it's like this, it could have been like a satellite. He was tracked down. I believe. He was tracked into, I think, going down there. He was led to go down there by this awareness leading him there, just like he was led to that book. And he calls it synchronicity. But what I call it now, in hindsight, I think satellite. And that they could talk to your consciousness in an unconscious way and direct you to go to a particular place. Maybe some people might call it spirit guide, a spirit guide, or an angel. I call it intelligences and technologies. Because all with this genre now that I'm exposed to the past 2 years, like the super soldiers and then these, the voice of God technologies, all these science technologies. And it was just a year ago when I got targeted at a restaurant, and it's just by chance that I was even outside with this other person. And why not any other time? I discuss in the privacy of my own home and these topics. I watched them extensively on YouTube about these technologies and the blood types, the O negative blood types. I watched it extensively. So why is someone or something preoccupied with a one-on-one conversation and zap me? And then I heard something. I think the same technology is directing David Icke. But he's in a compliance. But let's say you have different factions of people with the same technology. And right now they have precedence over David Icke. But then with me, there was an opposition of me in this learning thing, exploration of me, who was against me and zapped me. But it's the same science, the same technologies. But it happened to me. And it hurt me physically. And with David Icke, it charged him up. And as it said that it was information being loaded into him, he said some of the information would come to him as a download, and some of it would come in through individuals giving him information. But the key thing is that they want to give him information because they want him to speak this truth. But not everybody that is speaking truth, that other forces may not want them to speak it. But he obviously has a very powerful individual being his cover, so to speak. So they can't mess with them. So why protecting him, and why aren't other people being protected? See, this is a question about reality, and that there might be different factions out there. And maybe if you're not, they don't want you privy, but maybe they want you, and I'm referring to myself, to follow on a different course. I'm not David Icke. I'm me. But it happened to me a year ago. And so now it's 2019, and David Icke is getting to his pinnacle of acceptance to mainstream. Now he's on iTunes. And you could download the movie. And his lectures are packed audiences. So I believe all this is happening for a reason, that it's building up this awareness, this truth movement. And what does truth mean to you, the listener? How is your life being affected? Do you have synchronicities happening with you? What's leading you to the next step? And this is where I am today. So right now I'm at a standstill. And I believe that something is got to move. And something is moving. But unfortunately, it's not very positive. Positive in the sense that I'm given the worthiness of harassment. Well, when it rains, it pours. And yes, it rained and poured on David Icke in Peru, the download. What happened to me a year ago at the restaurant, and then now, 2019, in January, I did my first, I was scared to do it, but I did it. My first FOIA request, Freedom of Information. And I did several, I'm not going to say specifically, one of them I can say specifically, your school records. I wanted to see my school records. And I did get a response. It took 2 months for them to respond, but I did it in January. I typed up the letter, but I was afraid to mail it off. So it could have been late January of this year, 2019. I mailed them out for the first time in fear. And it's also when I had to renew this paperwork for something. And then, boom, I get a notice. And I sensed that something was going to happen. I got a notice that I needed to apply, but I just went in person. So I bring the letter in person to the place that I just did a renewal on some paperwork. And then I thought everything was going to be corrected. And again, I went in person, I got a receipt. that of the notice, and that I did bring in the paperwork. And then I got another notice. Oh, you didn't bring it in. It's time for you. Oh, you need to bring this document. We need a copy of your lease. And so I went back again. Then I get a third notice. And again, went again in person. And in addition to this, I wrote the address of where these letters, the notice letters, are coming to me from. And I wrote them a letter, certified return receipt. And I support with the supported documents. And then I did it again about 3 times, certified return receipt letter to them, and going in person again to the place that I initially filed. And then I did a one step further. I wrote to the commissioner of that department, and it's the Department of Finance. Okay, that's government. Well, I get a letter yesterday, no, 2 days ago in the evening, I open up a letter. And it's them denying me my benefit. Could you believe that? So yesterday morning, I went back to them, that agency, submitted the letter, the notice that they're canceling my application because I didn't get the paperwork in. And I sent them my proof. I sent my whole file. And he made copies of my certified return receipts, everything. And he says, I have to, he used a terminology that he's going to actually email that division to look into this matter immediately. And I told him, look, I even wrote the commissioner. What's going on? Why is this happening? So he said that hopefully at the end of the week he'll contact me and give me some type of response. So why am I sharing this story? Is it a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that in January I mail out the inquiry to various agencies, and one of them I did mention about my school records, from the time I was a child, and others, and then this thing with the Department of Finance benefit that I get, and then the harassment that, we didn't get your claim, we didn't get it, and each time I'm sending it to them, certified return receipt, and going in person also, and get the official. I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. And I know there was something else. Yeah. I believe that, the other thing about my YouTube. I can't go on YouTube. I cannot upload to my channel, Spirit Journey. They're punishing me for a week. And I know it's inevitable that they will close my channel. I have almost 1,000 videos. Almost 1,000 videos on my channel. And they're going to close down my channel because what I said was they said it's a violation or a hate speech. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? That's the climax to this audio that I'm doing now. I know this is long, but see, I'm giving this out for a reason because, see, you people, you have to document. And a lot of black people, we don't document things. You need to start documenting, whether it be an audio tape, whether it be in book form. You need to communicate and you need to document so that when you're not there, it speaks on your behalf. It teaches. It could instruct. It gives information. And that's what I'm doing here. So all these things are happening to me now. This is a journey that I'm going on. And ever since I was a little girl, I always felt there's something not right. And here, my latter, this current 12 months, 13 months, and all these things are coming to the surface, to its peak also, just like David Icke, getting targeted last year. Then in January, I mail out the Freedom of Information Act, and then I'm getting canned on this, this benefit that I get from the Department of Finance, and then YouTube penalizing me, and also the monetization that many of the videos that I put up, the videos that get more watch on it are the ones that they are targeting and saying, oh, it's not advertisers to all, something like that. This is by design. What's communicating to me is, I want to shut you up. I want to shut you up. Why? Why me? What I'm saying is not violating anybody else's finances, anyone else's freedom. But when you do things to me, when I was targeted a year ago, and you know what else? I think in 2011, late 2011, with those anxiety and panic attacks, I think that was by design. I think something out there triggered. Yeah, because there were other things going on at that same time that made no sense. But see, now with all the technologies, I didn't know about those technologies in 2011, those gadgets that they have. I didn't know about that. But I learned about them in 2015, 16. All these things that could cause certain symptoms in your body, in your being. And I believe that's what was going on to me in 2011, and that who it is didn't want me to go on a different path. I wanted to start my own business. And then these things started happening to me physically. I'm a healthy person. I eat very healthy food, supplements, everything. I was into my health and spiritual, what they call spirituality, all that. So why is this happening? See that? Because I believe in hindsight what's happening. That same person that interfered with me about 13 months ago at the restaurant was the same type of individual or people that was messing with me in 2011. But I just didn't have a name for it. It's all of the same, and they say, no, we don't want you to have your own business. We're doing a study on you. We're studying you. And all these other physical things, like the vibration that I have to the lower spine, the base of the spine, all this all of a sudden. And that started in 2016. See that? See how everything is in close proximity? It's in close proximity. Yeah, all this weird stuff. It's not by chance. It's all by design. Some of us are followed and being studied by who knows who. Are they scientists? Are they spirit beings? What are they? It's out there. And so, tying this in with David Icke has someone following him. David Icke is on an assignment. Again, with him, he started out as a footballer. And then early on in his career, he develops a condition that would seriously jeopardize him being a footballer. And just like me, I wanted to start my business. Isn't that nice to a black person starting their own legitimate business? And boom! And my school, the thing that I majored in, it changed the rules. I didn't get into this particular program, the internship. And then to get a job in my field, you need your license. But for me to get the license, the internship, well, I don't qualify for the internship. But yet they took me on the program. And then and then dropped it on me. Just like that. And then I was going to go into a new field. I said, okay, well, I have some money. I'll just go in a new industry. Then I said, wait a minute. They can do the same thing in this new industry. They said, oh, we changed the requirements. You need this other requirement to get an entry job. So I said, forget this. That's what's happening to me, folks. I'm documenting this to let you guys know that this life that I'm living, and possibly your life as well, is being monitored, is being studied, and you're being orchestrated and controlled. And I am waking up to it, and I don't like it. So these are the parallels that David Icke has about him starting out and then something interfering and tapping into his life and bringing him to where he is now. And the same with me. But in addition with me, they say, no, you're not going to do that. So it's like, what do you want me to do? I'm not just going to sit here and do nothing. That's not me. The search goes on. So I hope you people out there who are listening, I hope you understand what I'm saying. I know this is a very long video, and I didn't know I was going to kind of go off topic a little bit, but it's still keeping on topic because this is my reality. And this is news. Start analyzing your life. These things are happening for a reason, and the forces at large are trying to say, you know, we don't like what you're saying, girlfriend. Be quiet. I have to really do some real evaluation on my life, and we're to tap onto that higher power, my higher consciousness. I don't want to waste my energy either. As the expression goes, it's either you're going to pee or get off the pot. I want to be able to pee in leisure and get to the process. So that's all that I want to share right now. I know I've said a lot, and all these things happen for a reason. This is my reality. This is my truth. May you explore your truth, your reality. You're not far from it, and I know I'm not far from it as well. I'm right at the cusp. Don't be afraid. That's what they want you to become, fearful, so that they could control you. I pray to myself and to you, the listener. May peace indwell in you continually, and may truth be more abound. Peace and love to both of us, and may our protectors protect us in love and harmony. I thank you guys for listening, sharing my story to you. Share your stories, each one teach one. I